Titan's nails scraped desperately against the linoleum floor as he charged toward bed 12, his strong jaws gripping the metal frame with a ferocity that astonished everyone in room 304. The bark of the German Shepherd, usually gentle in the children's ward, transformed into desperate, guttural sounds that reverberated through St. Elizabeth's midnight corridors. "Get that dog out of here now, Doctor," Margaret Howell shouted as nurses hurried to 8-year-old John Wilson's bedside. The boy lay motionless, thin tubes connecting his small body to softly humming machines. Suddenly, the heart monitor stuttered, its steady rhythm faltering before unleashing a high-pitched alarm. The sound silenced everyone, even Titan, whose amber eyes remained fixed on the bed as Dr. Howell lunged for the breathing apparatus. The horrifying truth dawned on her, and she froze, her weathered hands trembling as 30 years of medical certainty crumbled. The dog had known all along. Feel free to give a thumbs up and share your insights in the comments, including the city you're tuning in from. Now, let's dive back into the narrative. Elizabeth's Children's Hospital emerged as a contemporary symbol of optimism amidst the sprawling urban landscape of Phoenix, its polished exterior shimmering under the relentless glare of the Arizona summer sun. Inside, the air conditioning buzzed incessantly, crafting an artificial winter that stood in stark contrast to the sweltering triple-digit heat outside. It was early August, and the city was grappling with its 43rd consecutive day above 100. On the third floor, the pediatric intensive care unit had transformed room 304 into an unexpected arena where the rigid protocols of medicine clashed with something far more elusive. The room, adorned with pale blue walls and cheerful solar system decals, accommodated 6 young patients, yet it was bed 12 by the window that had become the focal point of a developing enigma. Titan, a splendid 5-year-old German Shepherd with a sleek black and tan coat, had been an integral part of St. Elizabeth's therapy animal program for nearly 2 years. Prior to that, he had served as a search and rescue dog, boasting a remarkable record of locating survivors after natural disasters. His gentle nature and instinctive bond with children had established him as the shining star of the hospital's comfort care initiative. 8-year-old John Wilson had been in a coma for 11 days after a tragic car accident on Interstate 17. The boy, with his sandy blonde hair and freckles sprinkled across his nose, had once been a lively child, passionate about dinosaurs and Lego architecture. Now, his hospital room was filled with cards from his second-grade classmates and a plastic Tyrannosaurus Rex standing watch on his bedside table. John's parents kept their watch with the unwavering focus of individuals fueled only by caffeine and a deep sense of urgency. Robert Wilson, 42, a construction project manager with calloused hands and deepening worry lines, sat awkwardly in hospital chairs meant for brief stays. Jennifer Wilson, 39, an elementary school librarian, moved between reading aloud from John's favorite books and gazing blankly at the monitoring equipment. Dr. Margaret Hall had been treating critically ill children since before most of her staff were born. At 61, she exuded the quiet authority of someone who believed she had witnessed it all until Titan arrived. Nurse, with her practical ponytail and compassionate efficiency, Sarah Calloway was the first to notice Titan's unusual behavior. Meanwhile, Dave Turner, the ex-military handler overseeing the therapy animal program, found himself defending his star dog's inexplicable shift in temperament. None could have foreseen how their lives would become intertwined around the mystery of what Titan understood that they did not. Titan's initial visit to room 304 following John's admission was unremarkable. The German Shepherd padded quietly from bed to bed that Tuesday morning, gently resting his head on mattresses to receive weak pats from small hands. Dave Turner observed with quiet pride as the dog brought fleeting smiles to exhausted parents and bedridden children. "He's got a gift," Dave remarked to Jennifer Wilson as Titan visited each child in turn. "Some dogs are simply born with it," knowing precisely how gentle to be and which kids require extra attention. Dave's weathered face, etched by years of outdoor training with military and rescue canines, softened as he spoke about Titan. Jennifer nodded absently, her attention focused on her son's motionless form. John's accident resulted in considerable head trauma, and the doctors maintained a careful ambiguity regarding his prognosis, much like the uncertainty faced by most parents in her situation. Jennifer had taken in medical terminology at an astonishing pace. Intracranial pressure, Glasgow Coma Scale, brainstem function, all while grappling with the reality that these terms offered no insight into when or if her son would awaken. Titan moved through the room with a careful precision, dedicating moments to each child before transitioning to the next. However, as he neared bed 12, Dave anticipated the familiar pattern. Instead, Titan paused a few feet from John's bed, his ears perked up, head tilted slightly as if attuned to a sound beyond human perception. "Titan visit," Dave commanded softly, using the cue that signaled the dog to approach a patient. Titan remained frozen, his normally relaxed posture now rigid with attention. "That's strange," Dave murmured, giving the leash a gentle tug. "He's never done this before." Jennifer lifted her weary gaze, finally honing in on the dog before her. A spark of recognition flickered across her face. "Wait, I know this dog," she said, her voice strained from too many tears and too little sleep. "Wasn't he part of that rescue demonstration at Hillrest Elementary last month?" Dave's eyebrows lifted in astonishment. "Yes, Mom. Titan conducts educational visits to schools when he's not at the hospital." "Is it your son's school?" Jennifer nodded, her fingers trembling as she reached for her phone and scrolled through the pictures. John was filled with excitement, discussing Titan for days on end. She turned the screen to face Dave, revealing a photo of a radiant John with his armor on Titan. The boy's smile was broad, adorned with a future rescue hero sticker on his t-shirt. At that moment, Titan surged forward, drawing near to John's bed with an intensity that was hard to ignore. He pressed his nose against the boy's lifeless hand, then glanced up at the monitors before returning his gaze to the child. A low whine escaped his throat. "Does he remember him?" Jennifer murmured, a delicate wish in her tone. Dave felt a sense of uncertainty. In his 15 years of experience with service animals, he had encountered many unusual behaviors. Yet something about Titan's body language seemed different, more like concern than recognition. Over the next 3 days, Titan's behavior around John became increasingly strange. During his scheduled therapy rounds, the dog worked diligently with other patients, but grew visibly agitated when approaching room 304. By Friday, Titan was pulling toward John's bed with such determination that Dave struggled to maintain control. "I don't understand it," he confided to Nurse Sarah, as Titan sat rigidly beside John's bed, his eyes fixed on the boy's face. "He's never acted like this with any patient." Sarah Calloway, who had been monitoring John's vital signs, shook her head. "Animals sense things we don't," she said. "My grandmother used to say her old hound could smell sickness coming before the doctor ever diagnosed it." Dave might have dismissed such folk wisdom if it had come from someone else. But Sarah's practical nature made her observation more credible. "Has there been any change in John's condition?" "Nothing significant," Sarah responded, reviewing the charts. "His intracranial pressure has stabilized, and brain activity aligns with a comatose state." Dr. Howell reviewed his case this morning. Titan's whine interrupted them, followed by something unprecedented. The dog stood on his hind legs, front paws carefully placed on the very edge of John's mattress, nose twitching as he inspected the boy's breathing tube. "Titan, off," Dave commanded sharply. The dog, though reluctant, returned to all fours but stayed unusually alert. On Saturday morning, everything changed. Dave arrived with Titan for their regular rounds, only to find Robert Wilson engaged in a heated argument with Dr. Howell in the hallway outside room 304. "I don't care what the reason is," Robert said, his voice strained. That dog was barking at my son's bed at 3 o'clock in the morning. The whole ward was awake, Doctor. Howell's gaze shifted to Dave and Titan as they approached, her expression hardening. Mr. Turner, we must address Titan's ongoing involvement in the therapy program. An incident occurred last night, marking the start of a mystery that would split the hospital staff, challenge medical certainty, and ultimately demonstrate that even the most advanced medical instruments can be outmatched by the instincts of a dog determined to be heard. This is completely unacceptable, Doctor, Howell declared, arms crossed as she confronted Dave in the small conference room they had taken over for their unexpected meeting. Her silver hair was neatly pulled back in its customary bun, but the top lines around her mouth revealed her irritation. 3 night nurses have reported that your dog was practically howling at 3 o'clock a.m. We have critically ill children who need rest, not a midnight concert. Dave Turner sat upright in his chair, the posture from his military days lingering with him, a testament to his disciplined past. Dr. Howell, Titan has maintained a spotless record during his tours here. Something must be amiss. The only issue, Doctor, Howell interjected, is that a therapy animal is causing disruption among patients and staff. Regardless of the circumstances, this cannot persist. Medical Facility Administrator Patricia Langley, a woman whose business suits were as sharp as her decisions, tapped her pen against the meeting agenda. The hospital board has consistently backed the therapy animal program, Dave, but our foremost concern must remain patient care. Titan plays a role in patient care. Dave leaned forward, insisting that he had helped dozens of kids navigate through tough treatments, offering comfort during painful procedures. Now, he found himself barking at a comatose child and gnawing on hospital equipment. Dr. Howell interrupted this morning when a staff member discovered teeth marks on John Wilson's bed frame. The revelation lingered, and Dave's demeanor changed from defensive to worried. That's not like him at all, he said. Exactly why we're discussing this instead of just ending the program, Administrator Langley replied, her tone easing a bit. Considering Titan's past, we're prepared to offer you 48 hours to address this issue. Following that, if his conduct persists, he will have to be excluded from the program. Dave nodded slowly, understanding that this was the extent of compromise he could anticipate. I understand. Thank you. Outside in the hallway, Sarah Calloway was waiting, her scrubs wrinkled from a long shift. How bad is it? She asked softly. Bad, Dave acknowledged. 8 hours to understand his situation, or he's gone. Sarah looked down the corridor toward room 304, where Titan now sat next to Jennifer Wilson, the dog's eyes fixed on John's bed. There's something else you should know. Titan refused to eat this morning. I attempted to entice him with treats during my break, but he simply turned away. Dave frowned. In all the years he had worked with Titan, the dog had never refused food. That was concerning. He decided to take him to the staff break room to see if he could get him to eat something there. But Titan wouldn't eat in the break room, either at the premium dog food Dave offered, nor the turkey sandwich. Sarah gave up part of her lunch while the German Shepherd rested beside Dave's chair, his gaze locked on the door, body taut as if anticipating something. It's as if he's always on alert, Dave said softly, mostly to himself rather than to Sarah, reminiscent of their time at the earthquake sites. Sarah tilted her head, curious. What do you mean? Dave brushed his fingers through his receding hair. Search and rescue dogs exhibit distinct behaviors while engaged in their tasks compared to when they are at rest. Titan is displaying all his previous search habits. The keen awareness, the concentration, the refusal to be sidetracked by nourishment. It feels as though he has a purpose. But what could that purpose be? Sarah inquired. John's not lost. He's right there in bed 12. By afternoon, news had circulated through the pediatric ward regarding Titan's peculiar behavior. Some staff members steered clear of room 304 entirely, while others took special detours just to catch a glimpse of the dog that had inexplicably fixated on one specific patient. Among the nurses, Theories swirled, spanning from the practical to the downright supernatural. Perhaps the child's condition is shifting in a manner that the monitors aren't detecting, proposed one nurse. Or it could be that Titan senses he's on the verge of waking up, suggested another. My grandmother would say that the dog sees something we can't, added an elderly orderly, crossing himself discreetly. Dr. Howell brushed aside all such discussions with a sense of superiority. The monitors are cutting edge. If there were any shift in John's condition, we would be alerted right away. This is merely an animal acting erratically, which is exactly why animals have no place in a medical setting. Robert Wilson found himself in agreement with Dr. Howell that evening as he discreetly pulled Jennifer aside in the small family waiting area. I believe we should request that they keep the dog away from John's room, he stated, his voice low yet resolute. It's disruptive, and honestly, it's creating false hope for everyone. Jennifer's eyes ignited with a glimmer of the woman she once was, before fatigue and anxiety had drained her essence, embodying a sense of false hope. Robert, that dog is the sole being that has displayed any response to our son in 11 days. It's the only thing that matters, and that's precisely my point. Robert responded, that you're beginning to think this dog understands something the doctors are unaware of. And that's not a healthy mindset. Jen, sitting here and listening to the machines beep while our son remains still as Jennifer's voice wavered. At least Titan is trying to communicate something. Dogs don't convey messages, Robert replied, instantly regretting his harshness as he saw Jennifer's expression falter. Maybe they do, she whispered. And we're just not listening, she whispered, turning away. Their argument reflected a growing division among the hospital staff. Sarah had begun documenting Titan's behavior, noting times when his agitation increased or decreased. She enlisted 2 other nurses who shared her shifts, creating an informal observation log. Meanwhile, Dave dedicated his evening to delving into Titan's past training, reaching out to former handlers from the search and rescue organization. He focused on those who specialized in locating individuals trapped beneath collapsed structures. Dave informed Sarah the following morning, the circles under his eyes hinting at a night devoid of sleep. His training set him apart from typical search dogs. Rather than nearly scenting individuals, he had been trained to sense vibrations, delicate movements that could suggest someone was alive beneath the rubble. Sarah reflected on this, noting that he is highly attuned to subtle movements or vibrations that others might overlook. Precisely so. His trainer noted that Titan excelled at locating children, as their varying breathing patterns or heartbeats created unique vibrations. Sarah's eyes widened, and now he was fixated on a child who couldn't move or communicate. The implication hung heavily between them, but before they could delve deeper into the matter, a commotion from room 304 drew their attention. Titan's barks reverberated through the hallway, accompanied by Jennifer Wilson's urgent calls for help. They hurried to discover Titan beside John's bed, barking incessantly at the headboard. The dog's teeth had shredded the plastic frame, while Jennifer struggled to pull him away without success. Titan, leave it, Dave commanded, but for the first time in their long partnership, the dog completely ignored him. Dr. Howell arrived moments later, her face setting grim lines. The dog needs to go now, so please wait, Sarah interjected, gesturing toward the monitoring equipment. Look at John's readings. His heart rate increased slightly just before Titan started barking. Dr. Howell glanced at the monitors, her professional interest momentarily overriding her irritation. A minor fluctuation, well within normal parameters for a comatose patient. But what if it's not random? Sarah pondered whether Titan might be picking up on something regarding John's condition that is triggering these outbursts. Nurse Calloway, Dr. Howell said with the kind of patience one might employ with a well-meaning but misguided student, I value your concern, but we cannot make medical decisions based on a dog's behavior. The reality is that Titan is causing disruptions in this ward and damaging hospital property, which only emphasizes the issue at hand. Titan's barking intensified, more frantic than ever. "I'm sorry, Dave." Dr. Howell stated decisively that the 48-hour grace period has now expired. Titan must vacate the hospital without delay. Jennifer Wilson stood in the doorway of room 304, observing as Dave tried to persuade Titan to leave John's bedside. The German shepherd had anchored himself to the floor, his powerful frame taut with defiance. "Come on, boy," Dave softly encouraged, gently pulling at the leash. "We need to go now." Titan's amber eyes flickered between Dave and John's still form, a low whine escaping his throat as Dave pulled again. The dog dug his paws into the linoleum floor, resolutely refusing to budge. "I've never seen him like this," Dave admitted to Jennifer, frustration evident in his voice. In all their years together, he had never disobeyed a direct command. Jennifer twisted the wedding ring on her finger, a nervous habit she'd developed since John's accident. "Can I try something?" she asked hesitantly. Dave nodded, willing to try anything that might resolve the standoff without further upsetting the hospital staff. Jennifer disappeared into the small family waiting area and returned moments later with a wrinkled blue t-shirt. "It's John's," she explained, pulling it from his overnight bag. "He was wearing it the day before." Her voice trailed off, unable to complete the sentence. She approached Titan slowly, kneeling beside the vigilant dog. "Titan," she said softly, holding out the shirt. "Look what I have." The German shepherd's nostrils flared as he detected John's scent. His ears perked forward with keen interest, yet he remained still in his spot. "It's okay," Jennifer reassured, her voice trembling slightly. "You can smell him here too. See, it's John." She softly placed the shirt against Titan's muzzle. Titan inhaled the fabric deeply, then cast a glance at John's bed. His eyes filled with an overwhelming sorrow that made Jennifer's eyes brim with tears. "What if," she murmured to Dave, "they decided to let him keep the shirt and vowed to return the next day?" Dave pondered this solution. It could be effective, as Titan appeared to grasp more than they realized. Jennifer gently laid the t-shirt on the floor in front of Titan. "We'll come back tomorrow," she assured him. "Titan, I assure you that you can keep an eye on John's shirt tonight, be it the comforting aroma or Jennifer's heartfelt vow." Titan finally gave in, picking up the t-shirt gently in his mouth as he let Dave guide him out of the room. He cast one last look at John's bed in the corridor. Dr. Howell observed the scene with a blend of relief and professional doubt. "Thank you, Mr. Turner," she said with formality. "I trust this resolves the situation." Dave nodded, holding back his words to avoid exposing his irritation with the doctor's stubbornness. Instead, he led Titan toward the elevator, the dog still gripping John's shirt as if it were a treasured possession. Back in room 304, Sarah Calloway was examining John's charts when Jennifer came back. "I'm documenting everything about Titan's behavior," she said softly to Jennifer. "There's something I noticed in the monitoring data." Jennifer leaned in closer, a glimmer of hope shining in her tired eyes. "What is it?" Sarah indicated a sequence of observations regarding the subtle shifts in John's breathing pattern. These occur just prior to Titan becoming agitated. While not intense enough to set off any alarms, there is certainly a connection. "What does it signify?" Jennifer inquired. "I'm not certain yet," Sarah confessed, "but I don't believe Titan is responding at random. There seems to be a pattern here." Jennifer settled into the chair next to John's bed, her fingers brushing against her son's still hand. "I knew it," she murmured. "I knew that dog was trying to tell us something." Across town, Dave brought Titan to his modest ranch house on the outskirts of Phoenix. The dwelling, with its weathered wooden porch and carefully maintained desert landscaping, reflected its owner's practical nature. Inside, framed photographs chronicled Dave's military service and his subsequent work with search and rescue operations around the world. Titan nestled into his bed. John's shirt remained tightly held between his paws, yet he turned down the food. Dave insisted, "You need to eat, partner," his worry evident in his voice as he observed the dog's unusual behavior. Titan had always maintained a lean and athletic physique, but after nearly 24 hours without food, Dave felt a growing concern for his well-being. "You won't be able to assist that boy if you end up making yourself unwell." Titan's only response was to curl more tightly around John's shirt. Dave sat beside the dog's bed, gently stroking his head. "What are you sensing, boy? What do you know that we don't?" As if triggered by the question, memories from their search and rescue days flooded back. Dave recalled a particular mission after a devastating earthquake in Mexico. 5 years prior, Titan exhibited similar behavior, refusing food and fixating on a specific section of rubble that other dogs overlooked. The rescue team initially dismissed Titan's insistence, concentrating on areas where heat-sensing equipment indicated survivors. However, Titan persisted, barking and pawing at the same spot for hours. Eventually, Dave managed to persuade the team to investigate. They discovered a 6-year-old boy, alive but unconscious, trapped in a pocket of space that the equipment had somehow missed. The child's unique position had shielded his body heat from detection, yet Titan had sensed the subtle vibrations of his breathing. "You saved that boy when our technology failed," Dave murmured to Titan, who regarded him with keen eyes. "Is that what's happening with John?" The following morning, Dave arrived early at the hospital for a meeting with Administrator Langley. Titan, having finally consumed a modest portion of food before dawn, patted the space beside him. John's shirt still held delicately in his mouth. Patricia Langley welcomed him into her office, where the expansive windows framed the Phoenix skyline. "I understand yesterday was challenging," she began with a diplomatic tone. "Titan continues to ignore the boundaries set by John Wilson." Dave recognized the situation, "Yet I feel there's a deeper layer to his actions beyond mere defiance." "Dr. Howe holds a different perspective," Langley responded, expressing her concern that the Wilson family, especially Mrs. Wilson, is forming unrealistic expectations regarding the dog's behavior. Dave leaned in with sincerity, stating, "Patricia, in the 15 years I've been involved with service and therapy animals, I've never encountered behavior like this without a reason." Titan served as a search and rescue dog prior to becoming part of the therapy program. He is specially trained to sense subtle signs of life that may go unnoticed by both humans and machines. Langley's expression remained skeptical. "Are you suggesting that our medical equipment is somehow lacking?" Dave explained how distinct dogs experience the world in ways that elude us. Their senses capture elements that our technology fails to recognize. "I admire your enthusiasm for the program." Dave Langley noted her tone suggested the conversation was coming to a close, "but I have a hospital to manage based on medical science, not instinct. I'm open to allowing Titan to visit other patients, but room 304 is off limits." Dave understood the compromise for what it truly was, a last proposal. "Thank you," he said, concealing his disappointment. "We'll honor those boundaries." As they exited the administration wing, Sarah Calloway caught up with them in the hallway. "I've been searching for you," she said with urgency. "John's parents are inquiring about Titan. Robert Wilson has reconsidered his stance on the dog." "What transpired?" Dave inquired, taken aback by the unexpected turn of events. Sarah explained as they walked that Robert had spent the night in John's room. He mentioned noticing a subtle change in John's breathing around 3 o'clock a.m. It was brief, but he was convinced it occurred right when Titan would typically have been alerting. This revelation sent a surge of hope through Dave. If John's father had observed a change that correlated with Titan's previous behavior, it could lend credibility to their theory. They found Robert and Jennifer in the family consultation room, where Dr. Howe was reviewing John's latest test results. The atmosphere was charged, the air thick with unvoiced frustration. No notable shift was evident. Dr. Howe was elucidating with great patience. "These minor fluctuations are common in coma patients. They don't indicate consciousness or improvement, but they occur at the same time every night," Robert insisted. His usually composed demeanor showing cracks around 3 o'clock a.m., just when the nurses said Titan would start barking. Dr. Howell removed her glasses, pinching the bridge of her nose. Mr. Wilson, I see that you're seeking hope, but viewing ordinary biological rhythms as significant patterns can lead to misunderstandings at that time. Titan padded into the room, still carrying John's shirt. The dog's presence instantly altered the atmosphere. Jennifer's features relaxed at the sight of him, while Robert maintained a resolute expression. Dr. How, he stated with conviction, I would like to request that Titan be permitted to stay with John tonight under supervision. Certainly. Dr. Howell's astonishment was clear. Mr. Wilson, just yesterday you were advocating for the dog's removal. That was before I spent the night watching my son, Robert replied. I'm not saying I understand everything that's going on, but I refuse to dismiss any possibility that could assist John. Jennifer grasped her husband's hand, tears of gratitude glistening in her eyes. Dr. Howell turned to Administrator Langley, who had just stepped in behind Dave and Sarah Patricia. I must formally express my disagreement. This contradicts our decision. Langley observed the scene thoughtfully. I would like to suggest a compromise. If the Wilsons sign a waiver accepting responsibility, Titan can visit under direct supervision. We will install additional monitoring equipment in the room to document any correlation between the dog's behavior and John's condition. Dr. Howell's lips formed a tight line of disapproval, yet she acknowledged the overwhelming consensus against her. I want it noted that I find this medically unsound, she stated. As the adults continued their debate, Titan quietly moved to Jennifer's side, pressing against her leg in a gesture of comfort. She knelt beside him, gently taking John's shirt from his mouth. Thank you for watching over this, she whispered, and for not giving up on my boy. That afternoon, preparations were underway in John's room, with additional monitoring equipment being set up. Jennifer sat in the hospital garden, a small oasis adorned with drought-resistant plants and shaded benches, providing a rare moment of tranquility for families navigating the sterile environment of the hospital. As she rested beneath a mess tree with Titan, she reminisced, I used to work with dogs like you. Did Dave mention that before John was born, I volunteered with a rescue training program? Titan's ears perked up, his intelligent eyes fixed on her face. I trained communication cues, she continued, her fingers absently stroking his fur. She taught dogs to indicate when they found someone, even if they couldn't reach them. A memory surfaced, bringing with it a flash of recognition. We used a specific command for persistent alerting for when handlers needed to know the dog had found someone but couldn't get to them. Jennifer's heart raced as she remembered the command signal watch. She whispered the words, feeling strange after so many years. That's what we taught them to do if they found someone but couldn't reach them, to signal and keep watch. Titan's response was instant. He straightened up, his full attention on Jennifer, a soft whine escaping his throat. Do you remember that command? Jennifer felt a wave of astonishment, but how would one go about? Her voice faded as ideas began to intertwine in her thoughts. I volunteered with a rescue program that dispatched teams to Mexico following the significant earthquake. Were you present 5 years ago? Titan's tail swished against the ground, his body language shifting from alert to excited. Jennifer felt a chill that had nothing to do with the garden's shade. Dave mentioned you were a rescue dog prior to joining the therapy program. You must have undergone the same training protocols I helped create. She reached for her phone, her fingers trembling, as she quickly navigated through her photo archive. There, hidden in a folder she hadn't accessed in years, was a group picture from her volunteer days. She zoomed in on the back row of handlers and dogs, scanning each face until she exclaimed, "Oh my God." She inhaled deeply, surrounded by a dozen dogs in training, and noticed a younger Titan standing next to an unfamiliar handler. Though she hadn't worked with him directly, he was part of the same program, trained with the same commands she had helped to create. That's why you're so fixated on John, Jennifer whispered, tears clouding her sight. You're not merely responding without thought, you're acting according to your training, signaling and observing because you've identified an issue that eludes us. When Jennifer revealed her findings to Dave, his eyes lit up with understanding. I knew Titan was part of a specialized training program, but I never connected it to your volunteer work, he confessed. This clarifies why he's so intent on staying with John. He's essentially adhering to his training to remain vigilant for a victim he cannot reach. Together, they approached Sarah with their hypothesis, finding her at the nurse's station, poring over John's charts. So, Titan believes John is, in essence, trapped. Sarah provided clarification after they explained it wasn't exactly a trap. Jennifer responded, yet there was a sense of peril or unease that wasn't readily apparent to us. These dogs were conditioned to sense subtle indicator shifts in breathing, minute movements, and even slight fluctuations in body temperature. Sarah tapped her pen thoughtfully against the chart, contemplating the correlation she had observed between Titan's alerts and the subtle shifts in John's breathing pattern. She lowered her voice, adding, "There's something else. Dr. Collins, a neurologist and colleague of Dr. Howells, noted that conventional monitoring can occasionally overlook specific types of seizure activity, particularly in coma patients. Could that be what Titan is detecting?" Dave inquired, and Sarah recognized that Dr. Collins had proposed a more comprehensive brain scan. However, Dr. Howell hesitated to approve it without more definitive signs of an issue. "My son might be experiencing seizures that we're not aware of." Jennifer's voice escalated with concern. Sarah gently rested a reassuring hand on her arm. "We can't say that for sure, but if Titan is detecting something that our usual monitoring isn't revealing, it could be beneficial to advocate for those extra tests." As dusk drew near, Titan was finally permitted to re-enter room 304. The dog stepped in cautiously, sensing the multitude of eyes observing him. Dr. Howell stood by the door, her skepticism clear in her tense stance. Two nurses kept an eye on the extra equipment that had been arranged, while Robert and Jennifer occupied seats on either side of John's bed. Titan moved in cautiously, taking in the scents around him. When he arrived at the bedside, he gently nudged John's hand with his nose and then lifted his gaze to the boy's face, focusing intently. "He seems more at ease than earlier," Dave noted. "John's breathing has been steadier today," Sarah added, glancing at the monitors. "No changes since this morning." For several hours, Titan kept his silent watch, occasionally rising to stretch, but never straying far from John's side as midnight drew near. Dr. Howell prepared to leave, clearly disappointed that her skepticism hadn't been validated by any dramatic behavior from the dog. "I'll be on call if needed," she told the night nurse, "but I expect this will be an uneventful night." Robert, who had been dozing in his chair, stirred as Dr. Howell left. "Maybe Titan was just having bad days," he suggested sleepily to Jennifer. "Like the rest of us." Jennifer smiled wearily. "Perhaps, but I still believe he knows something we are unaware of." Outside, a summer thunderstorm was gathering, the distant rumble of thunder occasionally seeping through the hospital's thick walls. The monsoon season in Phoenix had come late this year, yet it was compensating with breathtaking electrical displays and unexpected downpours. As the clock approached 3 a.m., the storm grew fiercer, rain pounding against the windows while lightning momentarily lit the room with stark white flashes. The hospital's backup generators sprang to life as the power flickered briefly in the darkness before the emergency light steadied. Titan abruptly lifted his head, ears perked, body taut, as a low growl reverberated in his chest. "He's at it again," Robert whispered, now fully alert as the monitors displayed normal readings. However, Titan was growing more and more restless, pacing around John's bed with an increasing intensity in his growl. "What is it, boy?" Jennifer inquired, her voice tinged with anxiety. "What do you see?" In a sudden movement, Titan leaped up, positioning his front paws delicately on the edge of John's mattress. His nose moved with urgency, sniffing along John's body until it arrived at the boy's chest. There, the dog became entranced, gazing intently at John's breathing tube. "Sarah," Dave called urgently to the nurse who had just entered for her regular check. "Something's wrong." The storm's fury echoed Titan's alert, amplifying the rising tension in room 304. Rain hammered against the windows with a fervor reminiscent of frantic hands, while lightning turned the night sky into a chaotic dance of strobe lights within the confines of the hospital room. Titan's demeanor shifted from watchful concern to clear alarm. "Get down, Titan," Dave commanded, but the urgency in his voice felt hollow. He too sensed a shift in the atmosphere. The German shepherd disregarded him entirely, his attention fixed intently on John's chest. Titan's bark burst forth abruptly, 3 sharp, authoritative sounds that resonated through the space, cutting through the storm's chaotic noise. Sarah hurried to John's side, her keen eyes assessing the monitors. "Vitals are still normal," she reported, though her voice held a hint of doubt, revealing her increasing faith in Titan's instincts over the machines. Jennifer stood still, one hand covering her mouth as Robert moved to the far side of the bed, leaning in to scrutinize his son. "Everything looks the same," he murmured, his voice trembling slightly. His color, his breathing, the power flickered once more, this time for a longer stretch, with the backup generators humming louder, battling the storm's onslaught on Phoenix's electrical grid. When the lights finally steadied, Titan had somehow shifted himself further onto John's bed, his front paws firmly positioned on either side of the boy's frail shoulders. Titan, in a sudden burst of energy, lunged forward, aiming for the dog's collar. "You can't be on the patient's bed." But just as his fingers were about to grasp the leather band, Titan executed a move that halted everyone in their tracks. Space with intentional accuracy, the dog delicately grasped the breathing tube connector with his mouth, tugging just enough to convey his purpose without dislodging it. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered, maneuvering past Dave to get a better view. "The connection isn't right." Her skilled fingers glided to the spot where Titan had been intent, scrutinizing the connection between the breathing tube and the ventilator hose. "It's loose," she declared, her composed demeanor shifting to one of urgency. "The connection is faltering. It's hardly holding on." She reached for the call button, pressing it repeatedly. "I need respiratory in here now," she shouted, fully aware that the intercom would carry her voice to the nurse's station. "What does that mean?" Jennifer inquired, her voice tinged with rising panic. "What's happening?" Sarah was already in motion, adjusting the settings on the ventilator, the tube that assists. John's breathing wasn't properly connected. If it had completely disconnected, he wouldn't be receiving enough oxygen. However, the monitors. Robert started to display his current levels. Sarah completed the task for him. "They do not foresee the consequences that would have unfolded had the tube fully detached, which was imminent." Titan held his ground, his gaze locked on the tube as if challenging it to falter once more. When the respiratory therapist rushed in, moments later, the dog reluctantly allowed himself to be drawn back but stayed within inches of the bed, trembling with tension. The pressure dropped in the system, and the therapist confirmed after a quick examination that the coupling was definitely compromised. "Good catch," Sarah said, glancing at Titan to thank him quietly. None of us noticed as the respiratory therapist worked to secure a proper connection. Dr. Howell stood in the doorway, hastily dressed, her silver hair cascading loosely around her shoulders. The distinguished physician appeared uncharacteristically disheveled, clearly having rushed from home upon being alerted. "What's happening?" She surveyed the scene with keen, penetrating eyes. The respiratory therapist straightened up, noting that the ventilator coupling was failing. "Doctor, another hour, maybe less, and it would have disconnected completely." Dr. Howell's gaze swept the room, lingering on Titan. "And how exactly was this discovered at 3 o'clock in the morning during a power fluctuation?" Sarah stated firmly, no longer hesitant about crediting Titan. He's been trying to tell us something was wrong with John's breathing tube for days." Intricate array of emotions flickered across Dr. Howell's face: disbelief, irritation, and ultimately, a hesitant curiosity. "That's quite a claim. What happened, Nurse Calloway?" Robert stepped in, his usual calmness replaced by a fierce, protective energy. "That dog sensed something was off long before any of your machines did. He's been trying to alert us, and we've just been overlooking him." Jennifer approached Titan, kneeling to embrace the dog's strong neck. "Thank you," she murmured into his fur. "Thank you for not giving up." The atmosphere in the room changed as Dave's phone vibrated with an incoming call. He stepped into the hallway to take it, returning moments later with eyes wide in surprise. "That was hospital security," he declared. "The storms have caused flooding in the East Wing. They're putting emergency protocols in place and might need to relocate some patients." Dr. Howell's professional demeanor reasserted itself immediately. "I'll need to coordinate with the other attending physicians," he said, already turning toward the door. Nurse Calloway ensured that all equipment in the room had backup power connections checked and secured. She paused at the threshold, glancing back at Titan with an unreadable expression. "The dog can stay," she added, the words clearly difficult for her to pronounce. As dawn approached, the storm gradually receded, leaving behind a freshly washed world and a transformed atmosphere. Within room 304, the night's events had created an unspoken alliance among those who had witnessed Titan's vindication. Even the most skeptical night nurse now paused to acknowledge the German Shepherd when entering the room. Titan had finally succumbed to a deep, weary slumber beneath John's bed, his task momentarily complete. The hospital maintenance team had meticulously secured all power connections and thoroughly checked every piece of equipment in the room, guaranteeing that no further failures would go unnoticed. Robert and Jennifer sat closely together, their hands entwined, marking the first authentic bond they had experienced in months. The impact of John's accident had deepened the cracks in their marriage, yet Titan's unwavering commitment managed to close the distance, rekindling a shared sense of purpose between them. "I was wrong," Robert said softly, shattering the comfortable silence that enveloped them. "About the dog, or about a lot of things?" Jennifer squeezed his hand. "We were both navigating our own paths." "Remember that marriage counselor we saw last year?" Robert asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "She said we needed to find something bigger than ourselves to unite her on. I had dismissed it as New Age nonsense back then." A small smile graced Jennifer's lips. "And now we're united around a German Shepherd who's smarter than most of the people I know." "I think it's more than that," he added thoughtfully. Robert responded, gazing at their son's motionless expression. "It revolves around faith. When reason eludes us, you continue to hold on to the belief that John will return to us." "Neither did Titan," Jennifer added. The moment was interrupted as Dave returned from taking Titan for a brief outdoor break. The dog looked refreshed, padding directly to his position beside John's bed as if reporting for duty. "He actually ate something," Dave reported with evident relief. "First real meal in days." Sarah, who had stayed well past the end of her shift, looked up from her documentation. "That's a good sign. Maybe he senses the immediate danger has passed." Dave nodded, observing as Titan assumed his watchful stance, ready for search and rescue. Occasionally, these dogs exhibit signs of stress when they locate someone but are unable to provide immediate assistance. However, once they sense that help is on the way, they tend to ease up. "Do you think he realizes we finally grasp his alert?" Robert inquired. "I believe he realizes we're finally focused," to which Dave responded as the morning rounds commenced, the hospital's routine reaffirming its presence. The staff altered their shifts. Breakfast trays rattled through the corridors as administrators in crisp suits stepped out of elevators. The turmoil of the night faded into the annals of hospital history, already becoming the subject of hushed conversations in break rooms and over steaming cups of coffee in the cafeteria. Dr. Collins, the neurologist Sarah had mentioned earlier, arrived mid-morning to examine John. He was younger than Dr. Howell, with a thoughtful demeanor that contrasted with her more authoritative approach. "I've heard quite a story about last night," he commented as he reviewed John's chart. "Margaret, Dr. Howell called me personally." "Well, that's something new." "She's still not convinced the dog actually sensed something wrong," Sarah replied, keeping her voice low. Dr. Collins smiled slightly. "Margaret trusts in what she can quantify, a trait that has made her a remarkable physician, albeit somewhat inflexible in her approach." He cast a glance at Titan, who observed him with keen interest. "My focus lies on the fact that this animal identified an issue before our instruments did, indicating he might be sensing something our monitoring is missing." "Could it be seizure activity?" Sarah inquired, expressing the worry she had been holding onto. "Possibly," Dr. Collins conceded, noting that subclinical seizures can be challenging to detect without specialized equipment. He made an entry in John's chart, stating he would order a comprehensive EEG with video monitoring. "If there is any unusual brain activity, particularly around 3 o'clock a.m., when the dog has shown the most agitation, we need to be informed." The testing apparatus was arranged by early afternoon, with additional monitors and electrodes affixed to John's head to capture even the faintest electrical signals from his brain. Titan observed the procedure with keen fascination, shifting only when required to grant the technicians access. "We will be recording continuously." Dr. Collins provided an explanation to the Wilsons, "but I want to focus particularly on the times when Titan has exhibited heightened agitation. If there's a link between his behavior and John's brain activity, it could hold considerable importance." Jennifer nodded with appreciation. "Thank you for approaching this with such seriousness. Progress in medicine occurs when we maintain our curiosity." Dr. Collins responded with a straightforwardness that was almost refreshing. "At times, it required us to entertain ideas beyond our existing knowledge." As evening descended once again, Administrator Langley made an unanticipated entrance into room 304. Her tailored suit and poised presence contrasted sharply with the room's charged ambience, yet her expression bore a gentler quality than what was customary. "I've been updated on last night's occurrences," she stated, directing her words to both the Wilsons and the medical personnel gathered. "I want to reassure you that we are treating this matter with the utmost seriousness." She turned to Dave. "The therapy animal program has always been valuable to St. Elizabeth's, but I believe we may need to reconsider its potential in more diagnostic capacities." Dave understood the administrator's meticulously chosen words for what they truly represented, a notable concession from an individual who favored data over intuition. He cautiously proposed that Titan's training could also be applicable to other patients, particularly those who struggle to express their distress in conventional ways. Langley nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps for now, though our focus remains on John," she addressed the Wilsons directly. "We've arranged for continuous staff presence in this room tonight, in addition to the monitoring equipment. If anything changes, anything at all, action will be immediate." After she departed, Robert gazed at Jennifer, his eyebrows arched in surprise. Did the hospital administrator really suggest that a dog might possess knowledge beyond her medical equipment? Progress often arrives in the most unexpected forms. Jennifer responded with a faint smile as darkness enveloped the scene once again. Room 304 had been transformed into something resembling a command center. Dr. Collins had returned to oversee the EEG monitoring personally, joined by a neurology resident and a rotating nursing team. Dave remained with Titan while Robert and Jennifer maintained their vigil on either side of John's bed. "We're recording everything," Dr. Collins assured them both. "John's medical data and Titan's behavior. If there's a pattern to find, we'll find it." The hours passed quietly, with Titan staying vigilant yet composed, occasionally getting up to stretch but always close to John's side. The monitoring equipment softly hummed, capturing every neural impulse, breath, and heartbeat. As 3 o'clock a.m. drew near, a noticeable tension enveloped the room. Dr. Collins focused intently on the monitors, while Dave kept a watchful eye on Titan for any shifts in behavior. The Wilsons, weary yet resolute, turned down suggestions to take a break. 2 minutes to 3, the neurology resident stated softly. Titan's ears perked forward, and he rose to his feet in a single fluid motion, his attention fixed on John with laser focus. A low whine escaped his throat. "Something's starting," Dave said, recognizing the change in Titan's body language immediately. Dr. Collins leaned toward the EEG display, his expression intensifying. "I'm seeing some unusual activity starting in the temporal lobe," he confirmed. "Not enough to register as a clinical seizure yet, but definitely abnormal." Titan inched closer to the bed, his growl deepening into a soft rumble as he sniffed along John's body, just as he had the night before. The oxygen saturation remained normal, the resident reported, with breathing steady. Jennifer grasped Robert's hand tightly, both of them observing Titan's behavior, which was growing more agitated. The dog began to gently paw at the side of the mattress, his movements both deliberate and urgent, while EEG activity spiked. Dr. Collins noted, his voice tense with focus, "This is definitely seizure-like activity, but localized. The primary monitors wouldn't typically flag this, Titan." Suddenly, a sharp, commanding bark echoed through the room, causing everyone to jump. The dog's eyes were locked onto John's face with such intensity that several people instinctively followed his gaze. "Wait," Robert began to move forward. Did his eyelid just twitch? Dr. Collins swiftly approached John's side, pulling a small penlight from his pocket. "Possible increased responsiveness during this brain activity," he remarked, briefly shining the light across John's closed eyes. Noting their distinct pupillary response, Titan barked again, more insistently this time. "Look at the EEG," the resident called, pointing to the monitor, where the pattern of lines had changed dramatically. "That's a significant spike in activity." In that moment, something extraordinary happened. John's fingers, having remained still and unresponsive for nearly 2 weeks, suddenly twitched, a small movement, yet unmistakable. "Oh my God," Jennifer gasped, tears welling in her eyes. "His hand." He moved his hand. Dr. Collins was already calling for additional staff. "I need a full neurology team in here now," he ordered into the phone. Individual exhibiting indications of developing awareness during a focused seizure occurrence. Titan's demeanor shifted abruptly from restlessness to victory. The dog's tail wagged energetically as he glanced from John to the surrounding humans, as if to convey, "Look, this is what I've been trying to express." He sensed the awe in Robert's whispered voice. Somehow, he understood that these episodes were opportunities when John teetered on the edge of consciousness. As medical staff hurried into the room, armed with equipment and expertise, Titan finally eased his watchful stance, embodying the quiet dignity of a task fulfilled. The German shepherd settled onto the floor beside Jennifer's chair, leaning gently against her leg in silent comfort. Dr. Collins worked rapidly with his team, conducting tests and assessments, as John continued to show subtle signs of responsiveness. "These aren't random movements," he confirmed after several minutes. "He's definitely reacting to stimuli." Amid the controlled chaos of medical activity, Dave knelt beside Titan, rubbing the dog's ears with grateful hands. "Good boy," he murmured, "the best boy." The dog's intelligent eyes met his, conveying a wisdom that transcended species. In that moment, something profound passed between handler and animal, a recognition that some connections defy explanation but demand respect. As dawn approached once more, it brought with it the promise of a new day and newfound hope. Titan shut his eyes for the first time in countless nights, finally permitting himself to rest, though his mission remained unfinished. John's path to awareness was just starting, yet the crucial message had been conveyed and grasped. The dog that had bitten the bed compelled everyone to recognize what the machines failed to reveal. The careful hope that had blossomed in room 304 faded under the stark illumination of medical truth as the day unfolded. While John had demonstrated some responsiveness during the 3 o'clock a.m. episode, his condition had not only stabilized but also deteriorated by noon. Dr. Cullen's initial optimism had shifted to a careful concern as he examined the overnight EEG results. "What we're seeing is complex," he explained to the Wilsons, who sat shoulder to shoulder, their faces marked by the unique weariness that arises when hope is abruptly postponed. John encountered what is known as paradoxical arousal during a subclinical seizure. These fleeting moments of responsiveness can occur in coma patients, yet they do not necessarily signify a clear route to consciousness. Jennifer's fingers twisted her wedding ring with growing unease, yet he moved. "We all witnessed it." "Yes, Dr. Collins acknowledged softly, "but the brain activity that enabled that movement has diminished. The seizure activity itself raises concerns. It implies there may be areas of injury we failed to detect in our initial scans." Robert, who had remained quiet until this moment, finally broke his silence. "So, we're saying that our son moving for the first time in 2 weeks is actually a problem." Dr. Collins let out a weary sigh as he took off his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "The path of medicine is not always straightforward, Mr. Wilson. What we've uncovered is crucial information that enhances our understanding of John's condition, yet it presents complications we must tackle. We need to address this seizure activity before it potentially leads to further damage." The doctor's words hung in the air, each syllable a new weight added to the already overwhelming burden the Wilsons bore. Titan, who had been resting quietly in the corner, lifted his head at the change in emotional tone, his ears perking forward with fresh concern. "I'm ordering an enhanced MRI," he stated. Dr. Collins maintained his professional demeanor, which softened with genuine compassion. "We need to examine the areas exhibiting unusual activity more closely." After Dr. Collins left, the room descended into a lean silence, interrupted only by the steady, mocking rhythm of the monitors. Jennifer finally gave in to the tears she had been holding back, her shoulders trembling with the struggle to stay silent. Robert drew her close, his own eyes glistening with sorrowful frustration. "I thought we were turning a corner," she murmured against his shoulder. "I let myself believe it." Dave, who had been standing respectfully near the door during the doctor's explanation, moved closer. "If I may," he said softly, "in rescue work, we often find that progress isn't a straight line. Sometimes we take 2 steps back to find the right path forward." Jennifer nodded, her head bowed, too drained to muster any more energy. By mid-afternoon, John had been taken for his enhanced MRI, leaving the room oddly vacant without his steady presence at its core. Titan moved back and forth near the door, letting out soft whines every few minutes, sensing that something was amiss. Dave watched the dog's restless movements, his concern for John evident, a feeling that resonates with all of us. Robert responded, his voice devoid of energy. The MRI results came in with Dr. Howell, who had seemingly been summoned. Her demeanor was serious as she laid the images out on the light board. "There's a small hematoma developing here," she indicated, pointing to a shadowy region near John's brain stem. "It wasn't detectable in our earlier scans, but has likely been growing slowly. This accounts for both the seizure activity and Titan's escalating agitation. The pressure has been steadily increasing." Jennifer covered her mouth with her hand. "Is it operable?" Howell's hesitation conveyed everything before she spoke. "It's in an extremely delicate location. Surgery carries significant risks, and not operating." Robert inquired, though his tone implied he was already aware of the answer, "which also entails considerable risks." Dr. Howell confirmed, "If the bleeding continues and pressure increases, it could lead to permanent damage." The harsh contradiction lingered in the atmosphere. Taking action could jeopardize John, Yet hesitation was likely to lead to dire consequences. I need to consult with our neurosurgical team, Dr. Howell stated, emphasizing the need for meticulous deliberation. In the meantime, we'll initiate medication to alleviate the swelling and keep a close watch on him. Once she departed, Dave cleared his throat, feeling the weight of the moment. I should take Titan out for a break, he said, grasping the dog's leash. He hasn't been outside in hours yet. Titan, who had always been compliant, now stood resolutely, his feet anchored as he resisted the call to approach the door. The German shepherd's body was taut, his gaze locked onto the vacant bed, his expression reflecting a deep, almost human concern. Titan, come. Dave asserted himself more decisively, gently pulling on the leash. The dog's resistance was instant and total. He settled down, a soft whine escaping his throat. Let me give it a shot, he said. Jennifer knelt beside Titan, reassuring him. It's okay, boy. John will be back soon. You can go with Dave now. Titan's keen gaze locked onto hers, and for a fleeting moment, Jennifer sensed he grasped every word. Yet he remained unmoving. I've never seen him like this, Dave confessed, a hint of worry threading through his tone. Even in the midst of his most demanding search and rescue missions, he always obeyed commands. Hospital Administrator Langley stood in the doorway, her expression notably grave. I've just spoken with Dr. Howell, she stated directly, without any introduction. I must insist that Titan be removed from the hospital as we address John's medical situation. We need to eliminate all variables and concentrate solely on his critical care. Jennifer stood momentarily outraged, pushing aside her fatigue. It was the dog that brought John's condition to light. He had been cracked all along. I can see why you're frustrated, Mrs. Wilson, Langley responded, her tone softening just a bit. However, this is a medical decision, Dr. Howell, and the neurosurgical team must operate without distraction or complication. Dave stepped forward, speaking with all due respect. Administrator Langley, Titan has demonstrated his value in John's care, not a burden. However, my decision remains unchanged, Langley stated with conviction. Mr. Turner, kindly ensure that Titan is removed from the premises without delay. You are welcome to return, but the dog must leave. The command lingered in the atmosphere like a sudden storm. Dave gazed helplessly at the Wilsons, caught between the hospital's authority and what he was coming to see as Titan's vital role in John's care. It's not right, Jennifer murmured, tears once again streaming down her face. He deserves to be here. Robert, who had remained quiet throughout the conversation, finally broke his silence. Dave, take him home. We'll call you the moment there's any news. He turned to his wife, gently taking her trembling hands in his. Jen, we need to focus on John now. The doctors are doing everything they can. With a palpable sense of reluctance, he spoke. Dave managed to coax Titan toward the door, though the dog looked back repeatedly, his distress evident in every line of his powerful body as they disappeared down the hallway. Jennifer collapsed into a chair, the latest blow in their ongoing nightmare sapping her remaining strength. He knew, she repeated brokenly. He knew all along, and we're sending him away just when John needs him most. Outside in the parking lot, the Arizona heat hit Dave and Titan like a solid barrier. The asphalt shimmered with heat mirages as Dave opened his truck door, revealing an interior that felt like an oven after baking in the summer sun. Titan, usually eager to leap into the vehicle, remained fixed beside the hospital entrance, his gaze locked on the building as if he could penetrate its walls to reach the boy he had been guarding. I know, buddy, Dave murmured, his own heart weighed down by the sense of abandonment. Dr. Margaret Howell stood before the light board in the neurosurgery conference room, her silver hair pulled back into its usual severe bun, though a few strands had escaped during the long hours of consultation. On the oval table, 5 other physicians sat, their expressions ranging from skeptical to concerned as they examined the series of brain scans displayed before them. The developing hematoma is evident, Dr. Howell remarked, directing a laser pointer at the shadowy mass. What remains perplexing is why our standard monitoring overlooked it until this moment. Dr. Collins leaned in, fingers steepled, and interjected. That's not entirely accurate, Margaret. Our monitoring didn't miss it. The dog did. A dismissive snort escaped from Dr. Patel, the chief neurosurgeon. Please, Richard, let's not cloud a serious medical discussion with tales of animals. It's hardly a tale. Dr. Collins countered, his typically gentle demeanor sharpening his tone. We have documented evidence that the German Shepherd detected changes in the patient's condition days before our equipment registered anything. This behavior pattern is directly correlated with the seizure activity we're now observing. Dr. Howell's mouth tightened into a thin line. She had built her distinguished career on empirical evidence, measurable outcomes, and the steady advancement of medical technology. The suggestion that a dog had outperformed her state-of-the-art monitoring equipment was a challenge she found hard to accept. Everything she believed about modern medicine was challenged. Even if we accept that the animal somehow sensed the patient's deterioration, she said carefully, it doesn't change our current situation. This hematoma demands urgent care. Back at Dave Turner's humble ranch house, Titan lay by the front door, his dinner untouched for the second night in a row. The German Shepherd's eyes were locked on the entrance, his body taut with anticipation. Occasionally, he would rise and pace in a tight circle before returning to his spot, a vigilant sentry ready to resume his watch. Dave observed from his well-worn leather recliner, concern etched on his weathered face. You need to eat, partner, he urged, not for the first time. You can't help anyone if you make yourself sick. Titan offered nothing more than a subtle twitch of his ears. The stillness shattered as Dave's cell phone buzzed against the coffee table. He quickly grabbed it, his eyes locking onto Sarah Calloway's name flashing on the screen. Any news? He inquired, diving straight into the conversation. John is being taken into surgery in less than an hour, Sarah responded, her voice quiet and strained. The bleeding escalated abruptly around 20 minutes ago. Dr. Patel is going to try to alleviate the pressure. Dave briefly closed his eyes. How are the Wilsons managing? As well as can be expected, Sarah remarked in a way they both recognized as barely comprehensible. Jennifer hasn't ceased her inquiries about Titan. I believe having him around provided her with a distraction from John's condition. Dave cast a glance at the watchful dog. He's not faring well, refusing to eat and unable to rest properly. It feels as if he senses something is unfolding. There was a brief silence on the line before Sarah's voice returned, now even softer. That's actually why I'm calling, she said. Dr. Collins has been analyzing the data from when Titan was present, linking it with John's brain activity. He has discovered something noteworthy. Titan's head abruptly lifted, his focus shifting from the door to Dave, as if he grasped the significance of the conversation. The dog wasn't merely sensing the hematoma, Sarah continued. According to Dr. Collins, Titan was most agitated during the precise windows when John was experiencing those brief periods of responsiveness. It's as if he knew when John was closest to consciousness and was trying to alert us to those specific moments. Dave leaned in, heart racing. As clarity began to unfold, search and rescue dogs are expertly trained to signal more fervently upon detecting signs of life, particularly when the victim exhibits any response to their presence. Dr. Collins believes that Titan could play a crucial role in John's recovery journey. Sarah mentioned that if John makes it through this surgery, having familiar stimuli he has responded to before could be essential. Does Dr. Howell know you're sharing this with me? Sarah's dry laugh echoed clearly through the phone. What do you think is causing her to resist the notion that Titan had any significant contribution? Dr. Collins, however, has support from the neurology team, and they are advocating for this to be recorded as a case study. After they disconnected, Dave knelt beside Titan, gently stroking the dog's sleek head. You knew all along, didn't you? Not just that something was wrong, but when John was trying to Reach out. Titan's intelligent eyes met his, conveying a certainty that transcended the barriers between their species. Across town in St. Elizabeth's operating theater, Dr. Patel worked with meticulous precision, his gloved hands steady as he navigated the delicate tissues of John's brain. The room was hushed except for the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the occasional murmured request for instruments. Dr. Howell observed from behind the surgical team, her experienced eyes missing nothing. Despite her skepticism about Titan's role, she found herself wondering if the dog had somehow sensed the developing crisis before their technology could detect it. The thought was professionally unsettling. In the surgical waiting room, Robert and Jennifer Wilson sat side by side, their hands clasped in white-knuckled tension. The room's bland attempts at comfort, muted colors, generic landscape paintings, outdated magazines seemed almost offensive in the face of their terror. "I keep thinking about Titan." Jennifer broke the silence that had lingered for nearly an hour, whispering about how desperate he was to make us understand how close we came to not listening. Robert grasped her hand tightly. He ensured we listened, and that's what truly counts. Jennifer turned to face her husband, tears tracking silently down her cheeks. "If we lose John after all this," Robert interrupted with fierce certainty, "our boy is fighting." Titan knew it, and now we do too. The surgery lasted 4 hours and 17 minutes when Dr. Patel finally emerged, still in his surgical cap, his expression giving nothing away. "We've successfully relieved the pressure from the hematoma," he announced without preamble. "The bleeding is controlled, and the initial pressure readings are promising." However, he cautioned, raising a hand to temper their visible relief, "the next 24 to 48 hours are critical. We won't know the full extent of any potential damage until John begins to regain consciousness." "If he does," Jennifer corrected automatically, "when he regains consciousness." Dr. Patel's professional demeanor eased a bit as he acknowledged with a slight nod. When dawn arrived the next day, Dave's phone rang once more, and this time it was Robert Wilson. "John made it through the night," he reported, exhaustion and cautious hope intertwining in his voice. "His vitals are stable, and Dr. Collins says the early signs are positive." "That's fantastic news," Dave responded with genuine enthusiasm. "There's an additional element," Robert pressed on. "Dr. Collins has been meticulously examining all the data from Titan's presence. He has put forth a compelling argument to Dr. Howell and Administrator Langley, suggesting that Titan was reacting to patterns in John's brain activity that our monitoring systems were not equipped to identify. He is convinced that Titan could play a crucial role in aiding John's recovery journey." Dave cast a quick look at Titan, who had become fully alert at the ringing of the phone. "What are you trying to convey?" "Robert, I'm indicating that they want Titan returned to the hospital," Robert replied, a smile evident in his voice despite his fatigue. "Dr. Collins believes that familiar stimuli, which John has previously responded to, could help facilitate his return to consciousness. Apparently, there's documented evidence that John responded to Titan's presence during those seizure episodes." The importance of this turnaround was not overlooked by Dave. For a hospital administration that had previously demanded Titan's removal to now seek his reinstatement signified a monumental change in their perception of his contribution to John's care. However, there was one stipulation. Robert's tone shifted to one of greater seriousness. "Dr. Howell aims to formalize every aspect of the situation, meticulously monitoring Titan's behavior and documenting the correlations with John's condition. She is now approaching this as a clinical study," which caused Dave to suppress a small smile. "Are we in the process of changing the mind of the skeptic?" "Let's just say she's open to exploring different methods of patient monitoring," Robert responded tactfully, emphasizing that the priority is to have Titan back today if at all feasible. When Dave conveyed the news to Titan, the change was instant and significant. The German shepherd, once listless and disinterested in food for days, suddenly sprang to his feet, tail wagging with undeniable enthusiasm. He positioned himself by the door, glancing back at Dave with an expression that unmistakably conveyed, What are we waiting for? As Dave gathered Titan's service vest and leash, his phone buzzed with a text message from Sarah. Dr. Collins had just reviewed John's latest EG. Brain activity was increasing, and the possible emergence from the coma seemed imminent. Titan might be arriving just in time. The revelation sent a surge of emotion through Dave. After days filled with doubt, dismissal, and struggle, the connection between Titan and John, something that had defied conventional medical explanation, was finally being recognized. It was not seen as superstition or coincidence, but as a legitimate phenomenon worthy of professional investigation. What had begun as a mystery, a therapy dog unexpectedly biting a hospital bed, had transformed into a phenomenon that tested the limits of animal instinct and medical science. As Dave attached the leash to Titan's collar, he pondered how some connections go beyond our capacity to quantify or articulate, yet remain undeniably authentic in their enigma. Prepared to return to work, partner Dave inquired, already aware of the response. Titan's enthusiastic bark spoke volumes. His mission was not yet finished, but for the first time, he found himself not alone. The doctors who had once overlooked him had now become allies in a crucial endeavor, restoring John Wilson to the world and the family that awaited his return. Titan's return to St. Elizabeth's Children's Hospital was marked by much more celebration than his quiet departure. Administrator Langley herself waited in the lobby, her customary austere demeanor softened by what might have been had anyone dared suggest a touch of humility. "Mr. Turner," she greeted Dave formally. Then her eyes dropped to Titan, the German shepherd standing at perfect attention, his service vest immaculate, eyes bright with purpose. "And Titan, thank you both for coming back on such short notice." Dave nodded, keeping his satisfaction. Carefully contained, Titan's eager to resume his duties. "Yes." "Well," Langley replied, clearing her throat, "Dr. Collins has established a rather unconventional protocol for this situation. I've approved it on a provisional basis, given the unique circumstances." As she led them toward the elevator, several staff members paused in their duties to watch Titan pass. Word had spread quickly through the hospital grap of an therapy dog who had detected a patient's hidden condition when sophisticated medical equipment had failed, was returning as something between honored guest and consulting specialist. "Is this what vindication feels like?" Dave whispered to Titan as they entered the elevator. The dog's ears perked up in response, his attention already honing in on the mission ahead. Room 304 had undergone a transformation during their absence. The extra monitoring equipment was still there, now enhanced with cameras set to record Titan's behavior alongside John's readings. Dr. Collins stood beside one of the monitors, conferring quietly with the technician. When he noticed their arrival, his face lit up with a genuine smile. "Perfect timing," he greeted them. "John is showing increased responsiveness this morning. His EEG patterns are the strongest they've been since surgery." Jennifer Wilson stood up from her chair next to John's bed, fatigue clear in the dark circles under her eyes, yet a fresh glimmer of hope infused her actions. She knelt right away, encircling Titan's strong neck with her arms. "Thank you for returning," she murmured into his fur. "He needs you." Titan received her embrace with a calm grace, yet his gaze remained steadfast on the bed where John rested. The boy's appearance had shifted slightly since their last visit. Some of the tubes had been taken away and his complexion appeared improved, the waxy pallor giving way to a more vibrant hue. Robert Wilson, having engaged in conversation with a nurse in the corner, approached with an outstretched hand. "Dave, I can't express my gratitude enough for bringing Titan back," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "After everything," Dave grasped his hand firmly. "No need for thanks. Titan and I are just happy to be back with the team." Howell entered the room, her silver hair once again neatly secured in a perfect bun, clipboard in hand. Her eyes met Dave's briefly, an unspoken acknowledgement passing between them before her professional demeanor reasserted itself. "Mr. Turner," We've established a protocol for monitoring Titan's interactions with John, she explained, indicating the cameras and additional equipment. We'll be documenting any correlations between his behavior and changes in John's neurological status. Dave nodded, acknowledging the olive branch for what it truly represented. Dr. Howell may never completely accept the notion that Titan had capabilities beyond scientific understanding, yet she was open to exploring the phenomenon with the necessary medical diligence. Titan is prepared and waiting for your cue, Dave responded succinctly as Dr. Collins moved closer, expressing a desire to set a baseline. Initially, allow Titan to approach John's bed in a manner typical of a standard therapy session. Dave unclipped Titan's leash, offering a subtle hand signal. Titan, visit, he instructed softly. The German shepherd advanced with a sense of dignified purpose, approaching John's bedside with a calm professionalism. He gently rested his muzzle near the boy's hand, his posture relaxed yet attentive. The monitors maintained their steady rhythm, indicating no significant changes, while Dr. Collins observed both Titan and the monitors closely. Jennifer noted that Titan appeared to react most intensely around 3 o'clock a.m., which aligns with the period we recorded heightened brain activity in John. It's now 10:17 a.m., placing us outside that time frame, but I'm eager to observe any reactions to direct stimulation. He looked at Jennifer and said, Mrs. Wilson, could you please talk to John as you usually do? Sometimes, familiar voices can elicit responses in patients in a coma. Jennifer approached her son's side, gently grasping his lifeless hand in her own. John, sweetheart, she began, her voice soft yet unwavering. Titan turned back to her, as if recalling how thrilled John had been about him at school. He remembers you too, as if sensing the connection. Titan inched closer, his nose gently exploring John's arm and chest. Suddenly, the dog's ears perked up, his body tensing slightly. Dr. Collins cast a swift look at the monitors. There's a small spike in brain activity, he remarked, gesturing toward one of the screens where a pattern of lines had momentarily surged. Titan responded just as we noted the shift. Dr. Howell leaned in, examining the readings with focused eyes. Interesting, she murmured, jotting down a note on her clipboard. The timing is indicative. Robert's voice carried a subtle challenge. Titan reacted to a shift in John's condition before your machines did. Once more, Dr. Howell held his gaze firmly. Mr. Wilson, I recognize your frustration, yet sound science demands meticulous observation over time. One correlation may pique interest, but multiple correlations yield compelling evidence. We will have ample chances to collect that evidence. Dr. Collins interjected with a diplomatic tone, suggesting that for the moment, we should concentrate on the positives. John demonstrates a keen awareness, and Titan seems capable of recognizing these instances as they develop a consistent pattern throughout the day. Titan stayed close to John's bedside, occasionally rising to stretch but never straying far. Each time the monitor displayed even the slightest change in John's brain activity, Titan would alert, sometimes seconds before the equipment registered the shift. By late afternoon, even Dr. Howell had ceased to qualify her observations with skeptical caveats. The dog's consistency is remarkable, she admitted to Dr. Collins as they reviewed the accumulated data. The predictive value of his behavior could be significant for patients with similar conditions. Perhaps a harmonious blend of innovative technology and time-honored instincts can coexist in contemporary medicine. Dr. Collins suggested with a gentle smile. As evening drew near, the serene atmosphere enveloped room 304. The urgent crisis had subsided, giving way to the more tranquil and deliberate process of healing and recovery. Jennifer and Robert alternated napping in the reclining chair while Dave kept a vigilant watch on Titan, who showed no signs of fatigue in his resumed vigil. Shortly after midnight, Titan suddenly lifted his head, ears perked, body tense. The movement was so decisive that Dave instinctively checked the monitors, anticipating a significant change in John's readings. But the lines remained steady, showing no variation from the patterns of the past several hours. "False alarm," he murmured to Titan, who disregarded him entirely, rising to his feet and moving purposefully to the head of John's bed. With gentle precision, Titan placed his paws on the edge of the mattress, a position he had been specifically trained not to take without permission, and leaned forward, his nose mere inches from John's face. Jennifer, who had been dozing in the chair, stirred at the movement. "What's happening?" she inquired immediately, her attention piqued. Dave confessed uncertainty, noting that the monitors displayed no alterations, yet Titan was evidently reacting to something. As Titan stood motionless, his concentration unyielding, a slight shift occurred, so subtle that it could have gone unnoticed had they not been observing closely. John's eyelids fluttered. Jennifer called out urgently, trying to rouse her husband. "Robert, look!" The flutter came again, more pronounced this time. In that moment, time seemed to stretch into eternity. John Wilson's eyes fluttered open, initially unfocused but soon gaining clarity. They took in the ceiling before shifting to the dog, who hovered with unwavering attention above him. "Oh my God," Jennifer whispered, tears cascading down her cheeks. "John, sweetie, can you hear me?" The boy's gaze gradually shifted toward his mother's voice, a flicker of understanding illuminating the depths of his blue eyes. His lips parted, and though no sound emerged, the effort was clear and undeniable. Titan, his mission finally complete, gently lowered himself back to the floor. The German shepherd's tail wagged once, a restrained expression of profound satisfaction. He had kept his watch faithfully, and at last his charge had returned. As Robert rushed to alert the medical staff, and the room erupted into controlled chaos, Dave knelt beside Titan, wrapping his arms around the dog who had transformed from therapy animal to medical pioneer. "You did it, boy," he whispered against Titan's fur. "You brought him back to them." In Titan's intelligent eyes gleamed the quiet wisdom of a creature who had never doubted his purpose, even when those around him had failed to understand. Some bonds transcend explanation, some instincts defy measurement. Sometimes, the most sophisticated instruments of human invention cannot compete with the ancient, perfect loyalty of a dog who refuses to give up on those he has chosen to protect. When Titan refused to leave John's bedside, biting that hospital bed frame despite everyone's doubts, he reminded us of something our high-tech world too often forgets: some connections can't be measured by machines. Like many of us who've been dismissed as too old or out of touch, Titan's wisdom was overlooked until it became impossible to dismiss. Recall the days when physicians valued intuition as much as their tools. Titan embodies the unwavering protectors in our lives: partner who detected signs before any physician, the friend who felt that something was amiss, the parent who sought answers when others had lost hope. In our youth, we believed in these mysterious connections, understanding that love fosters a watchfulness that no advancement can replicate. Titan's narrative resonates with each of us who have kept vigil through endless nights, who have chosen to stay when told our assistance was unwelcome, and who have demanded to be acknowledged when experts overlooked our worries. His unwavering loyalty serves as a poignant reminder that, at times, the most profound source of healing transcends the pages of medical textbooks. It lies in the steadfast dedication to safeguard those dear to us, no matter the price, no matter what.